All right, welcome back, my dear student. So, on the last lecture, we learned how to install this form package. All right, and we even learned some of the fields that it creates automatically, right? When we did inspect element. Now we're gonna learn how to pass a couple parameters, not just use the ones in default, but actually override those default parameters. Now let's go to our browser and let's check this out first. Let's see if it works, right? We got to make sure that this stuff works. So let's go and cancel this. And if we try to use this, it says method not allowed, right? Well, if you look at it, if you do inspect element again, right? If we do that and we see what's going on, it's going to send us to a create method. That's not what we want. All right, we want to go to the update method. Not the update, I'm sorry, to the store method. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this real quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass a couple parameters. I'm gonna pass an array actually, and with a couple keys. The first key that I'm gonna put in here is the method. What method do we want to use? Well, this is going to be storing information. We're going to be using a post. All right. Now I'm gonna separate it, and we're gonna put another parameter here. Where is the action? Where is it going to? All right. Well, we want this to go to a specific URL, but at the same time, we want this to go to a specific method, right? So why don't we use that? Why don't we just use the controller and the method to where it's going? So let's do that. It's going to the post controller at what? At store method. All right, remember that. So this is the way we do it here. We put the controller first, and that's the controller we have for post controller, and then the method where it's going, right? All right, cool. So now let's try it to see if it works, okay? So I'm gonna take that out, refresh it, and now let's create another enter. And as you can see, it just created that. So let's go back and create another one. All right, what else? Laravel. Of course, we're missing Laravel, right? Submit, and as you can see, it's working perfectly. All right. So now that we're passing that, let's actually create the closing form tag. So let's take that out of here. The curly bracket, exclamation. And if you do one curly bracket, one exclamation, PHP Storm will finish it for you. So we do the form and then close static method. Cool. All right. So now we go back and we check it to see if it still works, right? All right, looks like it's working. Cool. All right, so now let's create this input right here, the title input. So how we do this? Well, if you're using Bootstrap, which later on we will be using Bootstrap, of course you have to have some type of div here with a form of group, actually right here. All right, and inside this we will have an input. We will have a label and an input. So there we go. And now let's create a label. Remember that all this information will be at the last lecture of the section, guys. I'm gonna give you the resources so where you can find out how to do this. All right. Remember to go to the Laravel Collector website. As a matter of fact, I think I have a window here that I can show you, and you can see all the possibilities for this. All right, all the methods and all the extra stuff that you can do. It's gonna be pretty cool. If for some reason I forget to give you the resources, go check out the documentation. All right, the version number of the Laravel you're using and the HTML. All right, cool. So now let's learn how to create this label. All right, so of course we're gonna have a label function, and we're gonna pass a couple parameters to this label function, and the parameters are gonna be as follow. We're gonna say the title, right, and then whatever title we want. In this case, we want to use title like this, or the post name, or whatever you want to use. Okay, that's gonna be, this is gonna be all right, what it's for, and this is going to be the actual text that people can see. All right, so now we got the label. Let's go ahead and create the text input form, then text function. Now first parameter is the name attribute value. Okay, this is where name equals whatever. In this case, it's going to be title. The second parameter is going to be the default, and we're going to use null for that. And the third parameter could be anything you want. In this case, we're going to pass an array, and we're going to use a class, because later on we will need a class for Bootstrap, right? Form control would be the Bootstrap class. And of course, I forgot my single quotes. There we go. Control. All right. Cool. Now this has 2 colons there. All right. So that is the text input there. And if we go back, and you can see that we have the first one that we created. Actually, that's the Laravel one that we created, and this is the old one. Okay, so now we can remove this old one from here. All right, cool. So now let's go and try it out to see if it works. Example, submit, voila, it's working. Okay, cool. All right, so now we could, if we want to, create a button as well. So let's do that. Actually, there we go. And we don't need a label for form for the button, so we're gonna say form submit, and that's it for form submit. If you want to leave it like that, that's up to you. If you want to modify it, you can modify it, and you can say create post, and we can pass an array here for the class. So you can say class, and of course you can give it btn. Later on, you're not gonna see these results here for the class because we don't have Bootstrap linked yet, but we will in the future. All right, and now you can take this off, of course. All right, now of course if you want to create a group for it, you can. All right, it's up to you. Now let's go back and see how that looks. Enter. There we go. And here we go. Voila. Now it's working. Now we got a form totally made with Bootstrap functionality. I mean, with the form package functionality, which is pretty cool. All right, later on you're gonna see why it's so useful and how we can use it to make our application a little bit more dynamic. And some of you already noticed how we can make it a little bit more dynamic and easier. Okay, so anyway, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next lecture.